Today's interview is with Steve Firestone. Steve's got a really interesting story for you guys today. He went from living in the UK and being a rock star in the UK to investing in real estate in the UK to then coming back to America and investing in multifamily apartment syndications. He talks about a cool story about how he gets the same buzz from real estate investing that he does from performing on stage. So I thought that was really cool. I can kind of understand where that comes from. So if you guys want to enjoy today's interview, stick around for all of it. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a great review if you think it's worthy. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. I love talking about real estate. It's all I do every day. So I'm looking to meet you, get to know you, find out what your goals are, see if there's any way I can help you whatsoever, and find out what you're trying to achieve in real estate. So if you guys want to schedule a 30-minute call, go to the link in the description below, or go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com and sign up there. I'd love to get to know you and get to know what's going on with you. So yeah, please sign up for a call. I'd love to meet you. So enjoy today's interview. We're going to talk to a real rock star.
Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barry Griffiths. Now today we have Steve with us. Hey Steve, how's it going?
It's going great, Barry. I'm glad I'm online and not in front of you. I don't want to get choked or slammed or anything. I'm a bit fragile at the moment.
I'm not dangerous anymore. I've hung up my boots. Those days are gone. So you're in Atlanta, right? What's going on in Atlanta right now? How's the weather? How's everything going with COVID over there?
It's been pretty rainy a lot. I know we've been on the TV a lot lately on the news, but first city to open up early, and some pain there, I think. And my numbers were going up a lot, starting to come down a little bit now. Kids are home from school in most of the counties here, doing online. Mm-hmm. Pretty much the same as the rest of the country, except apparently the numbers are higher here than other states. But overall, we can just hope it gets better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's nationwide, right? Same here in Las Vegas. Fortunately, kids are having to go to school online. I think that's tough for kids not to have that.
It has been tough for, I've got a 10 and 12-year-old girls, and they're great at school, but they're sort of struggling with their focus and attention at home.
Sure.
Sitting on the computer for classes, like it's just way too long. They're sitting there for like 6 hours a day, something like that. They just don't have the attention span. They just want to play games on their computer. That's what it's for to them,
Yeah.
Not to go to school.
Yeah.
Too much temptation.
The only good thing with this, maybe they might be put off playing with their computers for a bit. Maybe who knows, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what your current focus is?
Yeah. Well, my company, Crown Bay Group. I mean, now I started the company in about 2014. We started buying our first acquisition in 2015, and that was designed strictly to be a new company buying multifamily properties. Prior to that was only really 5 years ago-ish when we were buying. Prior to that, going back a long time, I don't want to date myself too much, but I was actually played in a rock band for many years. That was my career, literally full time. A few bands back in the late 80s, going into the 90s, and that thing. And at the time, I had moved over to England and lived in London at about that time, and was supposed to go for a few weeks. It's a long story. It's a very, very long story, but a few weeks to help out a band finish a tour in Europe that the guitar player was leaving the tour or something. And after that 3 weeks, I just stayed for a while. One thing led to another. They broke up. We started a band. And next thing I knew, I lived there for like a year, 2 years, and it just went on and on and on. So I stayed there and had a couple of bands over there for many years and traveled, toured, did all that stuff, and tried to make it as a rock star. Eventually, that just wasn't going to happen. This is the very fast story now. And it just came to the point where I just really wanted to, get other, have a different lifestyle and do some normal things, like I was saying before, like, do something like what normal people do, like, I don't know, own a car, go on a vacation that wasn't me sitting in a tour bus for hours on end. So, yeah, the problem was I had nothing to do. Music's all I ever wanted to do. I didn't have a backup. That was that. So again, it's a long story, but I fell into real estate by accident. And within a very short space of time, I just loved it and made some money really quickly. That was kind of unexpected. And then I just set out to learn everything I could about real estate. And I started buying up, it's a different market over there. They don't really do multifamily unless you call social housing multifamily, more like, what you get like the projects here in the city or something like that. That's government owned. But the private market there really doesn't exist like it does here with, large multifamily properties. And, it's mostly because the market's too small because, the UK is quite small in space compared to obviously the United States. But the big thing there is people just buy apartments, kind of like a condo here. And, one, and then maybe they'll buy, tons of them, but they're all singles in different places and they just rent them out privately. Or you can buy, buildings. There's a lot of small buildings, as I'm sure you know, being from the UK, where people, there'll be like apartments in a house. So there'll be an old Victorian house and it's got 6 apartments, converted into 6 apartments, or there'll be other buildings that have been converted. And that's what I really eventually got into, doing development. And we were buying buildings, everything from old pubs and, going through the whole planning process and rezoning and then building it out into maybe, half a dozen, 10 apartments, whatever. And then we'd rent them out or we'd sell them off, various things. So it was really more of a development background and a little bit of opportunistic along the way, buying and selling. And then I had met someone over there who, just networking and we were actually, I was looking at a property they were selling. That was a project that, of course, I had no money to buy. But I asked probably too many questions, which is why the guy called me back about a week later, and he was talking to me, and he's like, you really couldn't buy our property, could you? And I was like, no. And he said, he asked me a bunch of questions about what I wanted to do, and he said, why don't you come down to my office and talk to me and my partner? And I was like, okay. I didn't even think back then, I didn't even have, like any normal clothes yet. Still, I didn't have like a suit or anything. I was just like, went in there in like a leather jacket and
bandana.
Yeah. And I went to talk to them, and it turned out they were this big development company in London, and corporate sort of company with a, fancy Savile Row suits. And I sat down with him and his partner, and they talked to me for a little while, and I guess they liked my eagerness and my hunger to learn, and I'd do anything, I don't care. So long story short, they said to me, how about you come work for us? And I was like, what am I going to do? What's the job? Because I don't really know much, And they both looked at each other, and then they looked at me, and they both said, we don't know, at the same time. It was really weird. And they laughed. And then they just said, look, we think, you're, really want to do what we want. You can go out and find deals for us. You can just do whatever. We'll give you commission and a base salary. I was like, sure. And it was kind of like in a movie. It was kind of like, all right, well, here's $100, kid. Get yourself a suit and come in on Monday. It was like, if that's what it felt like, scene from a movie. And I worked for them for about 3 years and actually got really close with one of the partners, and really was my mentor and taught me all about real estate, commercial property. They were buying huge properties and, warehouses and industrial properties and rezoning and getting planning to build huge apartment complexes, but apartments for sale, like luxury apartments. And it was just a really great learning experience. And I still talk to them to this day. And after about 3 years, I worked so hard for them and I loved it. And they sort of almost like took me for granted, And then I eventually went back out on my own, and they sort of backed me a bit on doing my own developments and stuff. And that's what I did really until about 2008, when the whole market crashed here, and it crashed there pretty much the same day, the day Lehman Brothers crashed. And that was the end of that. And that's when I sort of started planning to move home to the United States, which I did in about 2011, by the time we got around to it. And then when I got back here, I hadn't ever worked here really in my whole adult life and didn't really know anybody as far as working. So I had already still been coming over at least twice a year to visit. And I knew that real estate was what I was going to do. And I had already been sort of looking at apartments a little bit whenever I visited and getting to know it, especially in Florida where my parents had retired to. And so that was the first thing I thought of, and started really learning everything I could on apartments, multifamily, and decided that really that was what I wanted to do. I knew very early on when I came back here that was, it is, as they call it sometimes, the darling of the asset classes of lenders, because there is, a little less downside on multifamily than other, as we're seeing now, like office, retail are very vulnerable to, recessions and things like that more than, housing, especially workforce housing, which is, what we specialize in. And just thought it was a safe bet. So I just taught myself everything I knew about that, started Crown Bay Group, spent about a year networking, building up the sort of the base of the company, trying to look like we were a company. It's kind of like the Emperor's New Clothes kind of story, It's like a lot of people that want to get into this business, of course, is always asked, like, well, how do you get deals? How do you do this? How do you do that when you never did anything before? And I'm like, I don't know, it's fake it till you make it. But it's not easy. But, you do the little things that you can do. You form a company, you start a website, you do everything to back yourself up, to look like you're serious. And then I did a lot of networking, going to events, going to, I picked out about half a dozen markets in different states. And luckily I had the time and the funds to do it. I would travel around to those markets, like at least maybe once a quarter, go see those brokers, go look at everything they had. That's how I learned, just by going and looking at properties, hearing them give their sales pitch, learning all the nuances of what you're looking at in a property. And, when we finally got our first deal, that was in Atlanta, and I was living in Florida still at the time. And we got that one. And then the same, again, another typical story. Once you buy one deal, especially in one market, the other people in that market know you bought a deal. You start getting offered more deals, and it just sort of snowballs from there. So what happened was we really just concentrated on Atlanta. Although I've always looked at other markets, and we've had stuff in the Carolinas, but we've had enough deals here to really just be successful, just, mostly in Atlanta. So it's been a good run, and we've done up to now, actually it's probably more now, because we just closed another deal 2 weeks ago, another one in 30 days, which we can talk about after. But we've probably done about 15 deals now. And probably out of those, we've had about, I think, 7 full cycle deals, which is not easy to do in 5 years. But, real estate, unfortunately, especially this kind of real estate, not, flipping houses, yeah, you can do it, but you're needing to find deals a lot faster and keep your pipeline fed. But of course, in multifamily, you can't flip things that fast, or you don't want to, because you got to create value. It takes a year or 2 years. But it's very hard to create that track record in a short amount of time. So it really does take 5 years, because, you need to hold things for 2, 3, 4 years and then sell them to show, and of course it takes a long time to find deals. It takes a long time 60 to 90 days to sell a deal, before you can really show what you really can do. And selling one deal is not a track record. So you got to have 3 deals to just show that an average, return of your system is working, and your knowledge of operations is working. So takes time. We did it, and no regrets. I mean, multifamily is a great business to be in,
Yeah,
but knowledge is needed as with anything.
absolutely right. And but that's such a fascinating story, right? That evolution that you have from playing in a rock band to then investing somewhere in the UK to starting your own business, doing large deals in Atlanta, and to where you are now. It's amazing. But I think it's interesting, like, that you went from playing in a rock band to real estate. That those two don't always go together, right? You wouldn't mix those together.
I thought that myself, that I would, I never had any idea that I would ever be in real estate, but it was just sort of happened. Sometimes you just fall into things, and when I fell into it, it just became my passion. Like, I know it sounds so different from being in a band, but it was the feeling I got, the buzz out of being in a band, in a way. Not the buzz from drinking and other things, but I'm just joking. But the buzz I got from being, on stage, or, playing my instrument, and doing a great deal and knowing you got a good deal, or seeing something go up in value and you're doing the right thing. It's like a buzz, it's addicting.
Yeah.
And that really, I just threw my whole self into it.
That's crazy. That's crazy because. Do you remember what triggered it? What made? I know you talked about wanting to have a car or wanting to have a vacation, but I'm sure there was more than that, because you're playing in these bands. Like you said, you were full-time gigging all the time. You don't just all of a sudden one day turn around, I'm guessing, to tell your band members, "Hey guys, I'm leaving," and the next day you're at the.
No, not exactly. It was winding down a bit, and then I had like a last band that I was thinking I was going to get a job or do a business or something, and then I had no idea what to do. And then I had another band that someone asked me to start that I'm not sure. Anyway, we did that, and that was another really cool band called Endorphins, and that lasted another 4 years, and another one that we almost got a record deal in the US, actually. And that started tapering off. By the end of that, that was the final thing, because I was already going to give up 4 years before. It was finally like, okay, I got to do something else. So I was trying to figure out what to do and trying a few other things in the meantime. And it really was totally by chance. An opportunity came up. Again, it's too detailed of a story to explain, but roughly, we had an opportunity, me and my girlfriend at the time that I lived with, to she had an apartment over there, a flat, as they say over there, and she had a sort of it's a long story, but she had a deal where you can keep that apartment for life. She had like not a council flat, but something similar, and but they had this program that, like key money, where they buy you out. So they give you money to buy your own property instead of, it was really for their government statistics to get you off the dole, almost, so to speak, that kind of thing, and like free housing, and or like low reduction of income, rent. So I said, I found out from somebody about it, and I thought, this is crazy. They're offering us like £20,000, to leave. But what I found out was, once you do that, you're like locked into this apartment. You can stay there for life, which is what a lot of people do. But me, probably being a little bit American attitude and all that, I'm thinking, that's insane. That's like, you got to have some motivation here. Who wants to live in this one bed apartment for the rest of their life? What people do over there, it's relatively cheap, if not almost free, and you're grandfathered in. But if you take their money, this is how they get around it, and skew their statistics, is if you take their money, you never can have an apartment again on one of those programs. So it's a big risk for people that live there. So I thought, no, this is crazy. I talked my girlfriend into doing it, and I sent in the form for it. and we never expected we get it because they only do 10, like I think they offer 10 in each like sort of district or something. But what I didn't realize was nobody ever takes their money because nobody wants to give this up. Only a crazy person like me. So 6 weeks later, we get this thing in the mail going, "You've been approved for this program. You can buy an apartment." You know, blah blah blah, and it was cheap at that time still. So I thought, this is insane, and I said to her, "We got to do this." So I went down. We didn't even have the internet yet. You know, it sounds terrible dating myself, but and that was still like 19. No, that was 19. That was already like 1998. We didn't even have a computer or internet yet. So I'm sitting here looking in the newspaper at classified ads for an apartment, no pictures. And I found an apartment by Tower Bridge. It was in a council block, but it was a private owned unit. And it was like 30 grand. Ridiculous at the time. And I just said, yeah, this is great. It's like my Tower Bridge. This is like great, you know? And they gave us this 20 grand and we only had to come up with 10 grand. We got a loan. We bought it. And then this is where the learning comes in. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, nothing. We didn't even know how to buy it. So I got, found a local lawyer. I don't think they knew what they were doing either because they didn't tell us about this stuff about, like, it's like buying a condo here and you have like an HOA. And apparently they were doing this major renovation on this complex. And it was like, I don't know, probably 20, 30 buildings. It was huge. And they didn't know that we had to pay in money towards this to do all these major works. So they didn't tell us. So like within 6 months after we moved in, we got this assessment because they're putting new windows in all these like 20-story buildings. And, we didn't know about it. Our lawyer didn't tell us about it. Long story short, I refused to pay it and fought it and threatened to sue the lawyer because he didn't tell us. And we got around it, got out of it. But what happened was they all within the first 12 months of me buying this, they changed all the windows in the building, cleaned up all these buildings. And our apartment went from like 30 grand to like 80 grand, like overnight, like within 12 months. And then before I knew it, within just over 12 months, the broker told us we could sell it for like 100 grand. So now I'm starting to learn shit. I'm getting books and I'm learning. And I thought, okay, we're going to refi this now, take out all the money. And then I went out and bought 2 more apartments. And I did the same thing in a really short space of time. And I was renting them out. And I found some good deals in the papers. I was reading the paper every day, classified ads, and then just taking the subway train to go look at them. And then I bought a few more. And before I knew it, I had about half a dozen apartments, and they were all went up in value really quickly. And within like 2 years later, I bought a big house for us, like a huge house in London, and had about a dozen apartments. And that was as far as I could go after that. And that's when I met these guys.
And was that, and did they all pretty much come from that one first property? Yep. From the 20,000 that the government paid you guys?
That's
that is
it.
Unbelievable.
In 24 months, we ended up with like close to a dozen apartments, in all different buildings in different places. Not fancy ones, but, just, low income kind of ones. And we just managed them ourselves and rented them out. And, at that time went and collected cash in person, and it was real old school.
You never had any.
And then when I got involved with those other guys, when I wanted to get more into actually building things and construction, there's only so many books you could read, and there was no TV shows back then like there is today. So it was really hard to find a mentor, and I just kind of fell on my lap when I met this guy networking, and 3 years with them, and I felt like an expert after that.
Well, you kind of were, right? That's a lot of success to have so quickly, just to create from nothing like that. It's amazing that you were able to do that. So that's.
I think a lot of it's just attitude and positive thinking, as I always say, and wanting something bad enough. Mm-hmm. I just wanted it. The more I found out, the more I wanted to do it, the more I wanted to learn, the more I could see the potential. So, I just worked hard. I would go see properties every single day and look at anything, whether I could afford it or not, to learn. just ask questions, pick people's brains. Same thing I ended up doing years later when I got into multifamily and started this. It was a similar kind of thing. I'd go around and see properties in different states of different particular markets I wanted to be in, like in Atlanta. And I'd know I'm coming in, I'd spend 2 days here and stay overnight. And then I would just have appointments and go see, as many properties as I could, with a few different brokers. And, probably thinking, how the heck can I buy it yet anyway? But I got my face in front of them and asking questions. And the only way to see it is to really do it, feel it, touch it, smell it. That's the only way to really learn. It's all, people need to have knowledge from books and go to courses and all that. But it's like anything, until you really get out there and do it, I think, you want to be a lawyer, you can learn all you want in law school, but you're still going to probably shit yourself when you do your first trial or, your first contract negotiation or whatever. You got to go out and do it,
Yeah, so true, so true. And then what happened? So you mentioned that when Lehman Brothers collapsed, in the 2008, what happened to all your properties then? Were you able to keep a hold of them, or did you lose them, or what?
Yeah, luckily, at that time I was really a more buy and sell guy by that stage. So we were doing a lot of things where we were converting houses into apartments, and I was also, by that time, I had already worked for this company, so I learned all about commercial. So I had a few other things like buying commercial property. I was buying retail properties. I had a few new tricks up my sleeves that I would buy like empty retail shops in small, parts of town on the, main roads. And then I would go and try to find, a tenant to lease the building. And that's what really adds the value. Like, as we know, commercial property is based on income. Mm-hmm. So you can buy, if you, want to take a risk enough, and you buy I wouldn't say to do that right now, to buy a retail property. But, in normal times, buying an empty property, and then as long as you can wait long enough and go, I used to actually, because I didn't know any better, I'd go out and target companies myself, and I would literally walk. That's what I learned from my mentor. I'd walk around that part of town and see what's missing here, what high, like main retailers, brand names, things like that are missing, and then I didn't know any better. I didn't know there was brokers that they had their own brokers to do that. I would just call up companies and say, hey, I got a really good spot. You don't have any presence in this area. I got a shop that would be good for you. Stuff like that. I just didn't care. I didn't know any better. So I did it, and it was really successful. And then once we got a tenant in there, signed a long 10-year lease or something, and then we'd sell it. It was great. Opportunistic buys, but I put some land here and there, sold it to people that, developers that wanted to build certain things on there. And I just knew, I did my homework and knew that, maybe the owners didn't know what they could do with it, but I had checked into it because I learned all about planning and zoning and knew what the possibilities were. So same thing. I knew what you could do with it. So I went out and targeted that sort of business and told them, I got this land in this, it was like a big industrial estate, and found a developer who built, big like industrial units, and they paid me like 3 times what I paid for it, all within about 9 months. So, stuff like that. So I was, open to that, and I still do it now. I bought an office building in Atlanta, total opportunistic, another crazy deal of mine. I bought it off of Wells Fargo. It was a foreclosure, but it's 83,000 square feet. I mean, it's huge, 6-story building. And I'm thinking, what? That must be crazy, but it was just sitting there empty and nobody was buying it. And I thought, this has got to be so what's going on here? And again, like everything, you got to always, no matter what you're buying, you got to find out the backstory. That's the most important thing. That's how you judge whether you're even, if you've got a big group that knows what they're doing, they're trying to milk the property and get, maximize returns out of it, you're not interested. There's no point. There's not going to be any value in it. So I look for things that people don't see. And on that one, it was sitting there. I found out from the broker that when Wells Fargo put it on the market with him, there was some interest, and but not a lot because it was a big vacant building, needed a lot of money spent on it. But the guy that got foreclosed on after 10 years of leases, he never put any money back in the building. And when the 10 years were up, all these people, there's a lot of government offices in there, and they left. They had an empty building, no income. That's how you go broke in office. So I made an offer. They would think that they only wanted like three and a quarter million, something like that. I offered them like 2.25 million. Broker's like, forget it. They're not even going to talk to you. Well, it turned out that he marketed it, but they didn't have the authority to sell it yet from the, down the chain, in a foreclosure with the bank. So it took quite a long time. By the time they were ready to sell it, there really wasn't any offers anymore. And the marketing was like 6 months old. So nobody even knew it was even on their radar anymore. It wasn't being looked at. So I put in this offer, and then it was a good 6 months. And out of the clear blue, I got a call from this broker, and he said to me, he goes, "Oh, they accepted your offer for the office building." I'm like, "What office building?" And he said, "There's 2001 MLK." I said, "What? Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "They accepted your offer, but you have to close in 30 days. I'm like, all right. So now I'm buying this huge monstrosity of a building for like 2.25 million. And I had to beg, borrow, and steal to get enough to close on it, just the down payment, I think, because I had to get a loan of like 1.25, I think it was, and I had to raise $1 million. I'm thinking, what the heck am I doing, But I bought it, and I still have it. And I did some work on it. It was a tough one. I've had it for about a good 3 years now, maybe more. And I had to beg some of my investors to put the money in. And what happened was they didn't really want to be in it. And even after a year, it was just nothing happening yet. And I didn't have any money to do any work on the building. So just sitting on it, thinking more opportunistically. So eventually, once I had started to make a lot of money in multifamily and I sold my first couple of properties, I took all the money and I bought out the investors. And they didn't want to be in it anyway. So I can't remember, it was like 10 or 20% return, which, was okay for doing nothing. And I kept it, and now I've done a lot of renovations there. It's for the most about good 70% at least leased up. And now it's part of a bigger development plan that I'm buying all the properties around it. It backs onto a major road that goes through Atlanta. I learned a lot from it. Like, it came with all this extra land right on I-20. It's got a billboard with it. It's got antennas on the roof that get income. All these different angles that I just learned so much from buying it. And now, I don't know, it's probably at least maybe 5 million now, maybe 6. Once it gets finished leased up, probably 8. And I only owe 2 million on it. So that was a real opportunistic buy. But again, it wasn't overnight. It's like 3.5 years now. So that's probably made me more money than all my deals put together so far. On paper, of course. So
what a cool deal, and what a fascinating story.
Yeah, that was a great deal.
With that, did you know all the stuff about the land? Did you know that came with it? Did you know that the billboard? Did you know the antennas? Or was it just blind luck?
Part of it was luck, and part of it I knew a little bit about. And I also happened to know what was happening in the area. And Wells Fargo, I guess, didn't really know what was happening, but it was actually in this area that was being sort of rezoned and redeveloped by the city. So I knew this was happening, and nobody seemed to really pay attention. But the mayor of Atlanta, it was very public for people to see, and it was his big. It was the previous mayor to the one we have now, and it was his big legacy project was the upgrading of MLK Road to set an example for other Martin Luther King roads in other cities and states. And he wanted to make it his speeches that are like live on Google, recorded on Google. And he says, like, I'm going to make it, MLK Road like the jewel of the crown of Atlanta. I think that might have been stretching it a bit, but it took a few years, but they have done, and they're still doing all the works. And they had all these like drawings done of what it was going to look like. And they started at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is the end of MLK. and work their way back. And it's about 7 miles long, that road. So just right before COVID, they were right in front of us now, and they're putting a median down the road and real nice lampposts and benches and artworks. And so that was my sort of vision for the building, was to make it really funky. And, I've kind of painted it really funky colors. This giant building that it's got like 150,000 cars a day go past it. And it's a really cool old 70s building. It's got a big triangle on a building, and it's painted like avocado green and gray. And it stands out like a sore thumb. But, it's
the cool thing is about that one is what you own it by yourself, right?
Now I do, because I spent all my first money I made buying them all out.
You have no money for food, but you have an office.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I mean, buying real estate, and especially multifamily, that takes a few years. You don't really make a lot of money right away. You've got to see your deals through. So you really make your money in the end. We don't really take much cash flow from any of the deals. We just make sure that we're distributing real cash flow, net cash flow, and that usually covers our preferred return to investors. So we've really never taken anything above that. So aside from our acquisition fee, we might not get paid for 3 years until we sell it, and then of course we get a big chunk at the end, if we're successful, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good transition there to talk a little bit more about what we've talked about multifamily already, but, as the progression of your career went, you were doing development, commercial in the US, then you moved back to the US after the Lehman Brothers crash and the whole, Great Recession. What made you want to invest in multifamily? Commercial, there's, a whole gamut of different investments that you could have. And in real estate in general, right, you could do a whole ton of different stuff. What was it about multifamily that attracted you?
Well, when I was trying to figure out, specifically what to specialize in when I came back here, I had, like I said, previously looked at apartments a little bit when I was coming to visit over the years. And so I was aware of it, but I also thought, maybe I started out doing a few flipping houses kind of things, but I realized that was hard work. That's really hard work. And I thought, I don't want to do this. So I started looking where I lived in South Florida and connecting with brokers and looking at smaller properties first while I was sort of teaching myself about the business, the more intricacies of multifamily. And I started out looking at like 12-unit buildings and 20-unit buildings and looking for a deal. And I thought that's where I might start. And then I was looking at, as the months went by, then I was looking at 40 units and then 60 units. And by the time the first year went by, I really, in hindsight, I feel like I kind of almost felt like I owned all those different things and went through the whole thing. And then what a lot of people were saying, which I tell people now, is, you really should, and there's a lot of good reasons, is to really buy 100 units plus to start, because buying small units is tough. And there's a lot of reasons why it's very hard to make it work and make the returns. So I realized that finally, and like I said, I felt like I must have seen like 100 smaller properties, and then I kept graduating till I finally guess I got up the nerve to like think that I could buy 100 units plus, and that's what I did. So, next thing you know, I had met some more people from networking, so I had some potential investors, and next thing I know, we got this deal in Atlanta, and that was over 100 units. And then I had another deal really quickly after that, which was my first real deal on my own deal, totally my own, which was 250 units. So I just went straight in. That was a bit scary.
So when you're starting, obviously, I know this, you don't have any reputation, you don't have any credibility, you don't have any track record. How did you network with the brokers to start off with, especially when you're going to see properties? And they need, brokers, they're great, right? They find a lot of deals. This is not anything negative, but they don't want to show a property unless they think that you have certainty to be able to pull that. They don't want to waste their time. They're busy, right? They don't want to go out to their office and show the how did you do that to start off with? And then maybe
it was really hard. And when I think about it now, I almost cringe a bit. it was hard to like know that you're bluffing and, but I don't know. I just kind of did it. It's like anything, you got to learn the lingo first so you can talk the talk, sound like you know what you're talking about. I think I had like the first couple of times I went to look at bigger properties, um, uh, I was a bit getting pulled up on questions about what you owned or what you were doing or, things like that. And even like asking for like a proof of funds.
Mhm.
It was really only a couple of times. I don't know, maybe I just learned to adjust what I was saying. And after that, I never got asked ever again. Like, I don't know what, but I never had a problem again. And then what I eventually realized as well was I knew I needed a sponsor to help me get, that's another thing that people need to realize. And I know a lot of people do, probably a lot of your listeners that know about multifamily are learning and, you know, from guys like, Joe Fairless and other people like that, that teach about multifamily and, these are, there's a lot of, you can't just, you could be a millionaire. I have people now, investors and friends who are millionaires, they can't get a loan on multifamily because without a track record and experience, you won't get a loan on a, 100 unit plus. You have to have experience more than money. And then of course, you also need to have the net worth and liquidity. So it is tough. So you really need to have a sponsor to come into your deals to start. And that is a sort of a standard thing in this sort of community of multifamily buyers. And I had met somebody at networking, an older guy who was kind of reminded me of my old mentor. And I got friendly with him, and he owned about 5,000 units in the Carolinas. So he was kind of known in the Southeast. And he had already had loads of Fannie Mae loans, and his partner owned a big management company that he didn't want to be involved in that side, but so they had a lot of experience. So I asked him if he could sponsor my deal, and he got a piece of the GP, and he signed on my first. Actually, that was a 250 unit for my deal for that, and he didn't bring in any money or anything, but he had the net worth, the credibility, all that. And of course, once you get someone like that that agrees to do that for you, you can go off their track record when you make an offer. No one's going to accept an offer unless you have previous experience or a partner that's already bought properties. When you're looking at, or I sell properties, or people are looking for offers for properties, they're looking for the best deal, and their brokers advise them what to take. And most people, they want top price, but what you find out more than top price is they want surety of closing, because it's a big gap of time that goes between these things. I mean, who wants to waste a month, 30 days on a due diligence period when we can still pull out of the deal and get our money back? A whole month you've blown your marketing. It's like starting all over again. So, most people would rather take a couple of grand less per unit, but sell it to someone who they know is going to close. So you got to have someone on your team who can do that. And I did that for quite a few of my deals. And as I bought more deals, and the guy that I used didn't really have to do much for me. I didn't really need his help too much. So he took less percentage as I bought more deals. So it really didn't affect me that much. But I had his track record to go off of, and I did use it, and sent it to a few brokers. When I put in an offer, I'd say, here's our deal resume, and I'd obviously have his details on there, and me too. And I just never said it. I never lied. I just didn't say the truth.
Yeah. And I think, you said that most people understand about the deal sponsors, but I don't think that they necessarily do, because it's always talked about, you find a deal, you find investors, and then you go ahead and do that process. But like you said, I think deal sponsors are invaluable because, I think as long as the deal makes sense, it's a win-win for both sides. The deal sponsor doesn't really have to do anything. They can be involved or as little involved as they want, but also they're getting a fee for evolved, rightly so. They've earned
That's
that
right.
right.
You're getting a cut of the potential profits.
Yeah, and
So of course, as a sponsor, you're still putting your reputation on the line. So of course, you want to be careful. Either be careful who you're doing it for, and that you feel comfortable that they know what they're doing, or you know that you're teaching them and you're working on it. Like I do that. You know, I've done a couple of deals like that, and I'm had a lot of other people that want me to do deals, you know, sponsor for them. And I don't mind doing it for the right people, as long as they have the right deal that I think is worth buying. And then, you know, I will be more involved. And I like to teach and stuff. So I've done a lot of that where I'll really explain what we're doing every step of the way and try to help them. I want them to do it on their own, sort of, but I also want to make sure that, you know, I can give the final okay that, you know, that they're doing it right in the best way possible. Because I want them to be able to go out on their own at some point. So I like people that you want to do with people you like anything. You don't just doing it for the money is not a good idea. I mean, sponsoring is still risky. So you want to do it for someone that you feel has the potential. I don't look at them as competition. I enjoy being able to help them out. So maybe we do at least a couple of deals together, and then they're really on their way. You know?
That's very nice of you in terms of wanting to teach and help them. Coming from that perspective, like you said, not just money. And that's the great thing about this business as well, is like when you create that life for yourself, you have the choice who you work with, right? If you work a W-2 job doing whatever it is, you're going to have to work with people you don't like, and that's not, you know, that's not fun, right? So when you work and you're your own boss, or you work with other people like that, it's great for everyone, I think.
It is, and it's the same with brokers and everything like that as well. The same with any business, especially like real estate in this business. It's a relationship business.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's brokers, investors, or you know, anything to do with this business. Lenders, we speak to the same lenders all the time. You know, we do multiple loans with, like, they might be Fannie Mae loans, but we only have, like, you know, a couple of groups, you know, brokers that are like the biggest in the country that do the most Fannie loans, but we use them multiple deals because we've closed deals with them already. We're already on their system. They know I can close a deal and come up with the equity. So, you know, we've done last deals we did a deal with you know, one of these big groups for Fannie Mae loan, and then now we had another deal come up, and that helped us get the deal because we already knew them, and it turned out that the loan, this property was already presented to them and pre-approved by Fannie Mae because they were going to refinance it. They decided they wanted to sell it. So when we bought it, it was this guy, the same guy, even the loan originator from that company. And he was like, "Oh, sure, Steve, no problem." You know, so we still have to go through the process, but it just makes it that much. It's because you know the person's relationship there. And now we have another deal, a 260 unit we're buying, which is actually a loan assumption, like a $20 million deal. And we, again, it turned out that, and it was off market. It's a killer deal, which we're closing in about 30 days. And we just closed the deal 2 weeks ago with this lender. And now this one just happened to be a Fannie Mae loan through the same company. And we just closed the deal, so they don't even need anything from me. Financials and everything's already done. So, and they actually called the seller and vouched for me because that helped them, you know, because I almost didn't get it. They were talking to, it was off market, but they were only talking to 2 or 3 groups. They wanted to keep it quiet. And the broker, the loan broker called up the seller because they knew him. It's a big group in New York. And they said, "Yeah, we just did this deal with Steve. We know him. We've done multiple deals. Yes, we think he can close the deal and he can take over the loan assumption because it's like a 15 million loan assumption." And that was it. That swung the deal to us for that. So again, having people vouch for you is worth its weight in gold, you know.
You make it sound easy.
It's not.
No, I'm joking.
I've had a lot of stress in 5 years. I'm not telling you all the bad parts. There's a lot of stress in raising money and you know, not realizing early on that was probably a good lesson, you know, about that they always teach you, but you don't listen to, like making sure you raise a lot more verbally, you know, verbal commitments than you really need, because when the day comes when they have to send the money to your bank account, some of it ain't coming. Getting people to say they want to invest in your deals and getting people to actually part with money, like actually send it to you, is a whole different story. It's kind of like the day when you go, okay, can you sign that document and wire your money over? We're closing next week. It's like trying to get like something out of someone's hand that rigor mortis has set in. It's like you can't pry it out of their hands. And we've been left at, like, I probably had 3 times deals where I was like $1 million short, and we're closing next week, and we're hustling, and you're on the phone trying to put in anything, you know. What do you got? But look behind the couch. Now it had to be like, 50 grand or more, but we were just calling everybody and anybody, you know. And there's been some scary times and really stressed because you've got your money on the line too. And as we grew, you're buying bigger deals, you're putting down bigger EMD money. Your money's hard, and to get deals too. I've been really aggressive, and sometimes we put down hard money from day one. It could be 100 grand, 200 grand later on. And, because I felt comfortable being aggressive and risking that. But if you can't raise the money, after 30 days, your money's hard. It's scary. Or sometimes putting it on day one when you sign the contract. But that helps you get deals. It's another angle. It shows how serious you are. That's scary.
I'm sure. With to raise $1 million in a week is no easy task, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but
we've done it. We pulled out a few deals out of, rabbits out of the hat to get deals done. Sometimes you got to give away a little bit, but and that's another thing, is that you really can't. This is not a get rich quick thing, and you can't look at a deal like, if you've got to give away part of it, or have more people in your GP entity to help bring in money and partner with people. It really is a bit of a team sort of effort, and you have to do that. If you think you're going to do it just on your own, it's really hard. At the same time, you don't want too many people in there either. Otherwise, it dilutes it, that it's not worth it. So there is a fine line, but having some partners that just help bring in funds, or in charge of that department is really helpful.
You talked about two deals there. Let's get to that in a second. But I also want to talk about your model. We've talked about this a little bit off outside of this interview. But you talked about, you find a model and then you just kind of repeat that model. Right? It's like rinse and repeat. Maybe talk to us a little bit about what your model is for multifamily.
Yeah. Well, it's a word that most people in that are trying to do this and are doing it know, which is value add. And of course, it's a very broad comment, but a lot of people tend to right away think that value add means doing physical work. And that's not necessarily true. There's different types of value add. And, I just have like a sort of a 3 core approach. Number 1 is buying right. I mean, that's adding value, right? You get a good deal. You find a good deal, you added value just by buying it, getting it. So I've got to buy right in the first place. If it doesn't work on conservative numbers, without worrying about anything else, then I'm not buying it. You can't make up numbers that you think you might be able to, projected numbers that you might achieve. And you can't believe brokers pro forma. Sorry, brokers, but pro forma numbers. Oh my God. You got to make you got to make your own numbers, and you got to make sure they work, and you got to make sure that they're conservative, and that they are really achievable. Which is looking at your comps and really being honest with yourself about where you think rents could go to and all that kind of stuff. And number 2 really is just adding value by things that don't cost money, which is management efficiency, and that's everything I learned the hard way of what to do. And really by that, I mean, just looking for, we target properties that are being run a lot by owner managers, or owner managed properties, or, by management companies, which I don't want to be mean, but most of them are not very good. I'm afraid the bigger they are, the worse they are a lot of times, most of the time. Because they're not looking after your money. They're looking at, management on real estate or properties is a really weird sort of subject, because in theory, the management companies exist to manage your properties. but they're really, your interests are not aligned, because really what they're interested in is building their company. And your property is only as good as down the line in the company, whoever's working at your property. They could manage 20, 40, 50 properties. And they're not looking after your bottom line. So eventually, after learning the hard way, I started my own management company. And so I don't consider us self-managing. I started a separate company, entity, management company, and I hired somebody with 30 years experience to run that company that had experience managing a property management company. But the difference is their interest is only aligned in that they're only work for the owner, me, and our group. So everything is about the bottom line of the properties. So there is a crossover part where, where we have the same things, alignment, but then they're also running it as a regular management company. So everything about efficiency, we don't let people on the properties aren't allowed to, buy, order things or put orders in unless it goes through the chain of command and goes up to either, Michelle, who runs our company, or through, we have a guy Dion who runs all the capital works at all our properties. So he hires all the maintenance staff, interviews them, hires them. They have to give him, like, every month they put in their inventory, order what they need, just for, not for doing work, like as in, upgrades and properties and things, but just their everyday plumbing, electrics, whatever that they stock. I mean, with management companies, that stuff, a lot of times you get a lot of stuff that just goes walking out the door, back door, and things like that. And it's just a nightmare, kind of like owning a bar and you're never there, and extra booze gets ordered and, goes out the back door. But, with us, everything is really streamlined. And what we do is we just run it really efficiently. So every time, we take over a property, it's always the same. We get, the income goes up because we're really tough on market rents. We know what our market rent is. We burn off loss to lease. That's what we look for when we're looking at a property, that we have a loss to lease to burn off, get everything up to market rate or what it should be. Run it more efficiency, run the expenses, not low to the property's detriment, but just, a lot lower and more in a more efficient level. If they're collecting utilities, like say charging back for water, we'll make sure that we increase that percentage that they're collecting back, things like that. And then the third, one is buying right, two is management efficiencies, and three, last but not least, is doing physical work, which is like, can I upgrade the interior of a unit and spend $3 or $4 or $5 grand and get back $50, $75, $100 rent increases on top of just normal market rent for an unrenovated unit. But that in itself is not enough. You have to have the other two elements too. And all three of those together is how you make a home run. And that's what we do every time, the same thing. So we got to know that we're buying right or feel pretty confident. And all that management efficiency stuff, that's what we look for before we buy, that we think we can do that because it's not being run well. And then last is, doing the works, raise rents. And that also includes interiors, that also includes adding amenities or improving amenities. We're bought the properties that we just bought where, they're not that bad. They're actually pretty nice, but they neglected things like, they've got a nice property, but their playground is crap and old. And we're going to spend money and put in a really nice one because it's worth every penny. It's, a lot of people, landlords think, I'm not going to spend 20 grand on the playground. It's a waste of money. 20 grand? It's a $20 million property. What's 20 grand? It looks amazing. It's right in front of the office. You want it to look like a park, things like that, just little things. Putting up new lighting on the buildings that just looks more attractive. You don't want to have like, you see some of these properties and there'll be like broken lights on the building, just it looks crap. Blinds, you see a lot of blinds in the windows that are broken. Tenants break them, or when we take over property, that's one of the first things we do. We do a blind check of all the blinds on the property, and then we go to the tenants and we say, we're going to replace your blinds so that it looks nice. We're going to replace all the blinds that are broken, and they sign something, and they have to sign a waiver that if the blind is broken again, they have to pay for it. And it just looks so much nicer when you replace those, because when you go to a property, you see a few broken lights here and there, a few, potholes in the road, a few blinds. It's such an easy fix that you just wonder why it's not done. And we do it, and it really costs pennies. And it can make such a big difference, just tidying it up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And that's great. That's a great model, I think, because as you mentioned, with just the management efficiencies, that doesn't necessarily cost much, right, to run a property better. If you're able to just go in there and do that, and create the value and bring rents up to market without having to spend a lot of money on capital improvements on the inside of the units.
Without good management, you're not going to do great. That is most important. So if you do have a third-party management, you do have to make sure that you are, you keep up on it. When other, people think that they can just buy multifamily and hire a third-party management and walk away, not going to happen. And I know plenty of people who failed that way. You got to watch over their shoulder, and that's what I did. I had third-party management. I'm not going to say they were terrible, although probably Michelle, who runs my company, will say you are. But she's very critical. But I learned a lot having them. But I also felt like I was spending a lot of time looking over their shoulder, checking everything on the accounts, and I still didn't know everything that was really going on behind the scenes. So it was a huge learning curve.
And so what are you guys doing now, post-pandemic, or during, things have changed a little bit. The landscape's a little different now, right? What are you guys doing now?
Well, we were lucky enough to sell off about 4, or maybe it was even 5 properties last year. And of course, I didn't know the pandemic was coming. It was just people offered me good prices, and it was kind of part of our plan. It was kind of like the first phase was over, like this 5 years. We turned over about 7 deals, full cycle. We've got a nice track record and resume book. And, the only way to do that, is to sell off, which reduces your unit count. That's the way it goes. And then, the next step up, the next leg up, so to speak, is, you sell off some, reduces it, but then you buy up and you want to go even higher the next time. But now you've got some capital, you've made some money, so you feel like it was worth it. Plus you've proven yourself. So we did well last year, sold that probably at the top right before COVID. Then we started looking for more properties. The market was getting overheated anyway. And we couldn't even buy anything in Atlanta, just prior to COVID. It was getting really difficult to snoop out a good deal. It was just so much money here looking to buy in most markets, but especially in a high growth market like Atlanta. And we were looking at a few things, and potentially, and then the COVID thing happened in the lockdown, and that just stopped the market dead in its tracks. And everybody that I know, and every group, every property we were looking at, all offers got pulled out, and it just went silent. There was no deals being done. It was just overnight, kind of like when Lehman crashed. It was that kind of thing. Nobody really knew what was happening in any business in the country, did that. So there was like a pause for at least 2 months. And we just sat here that's when I really felt the lockdown, sort of what was really happening. I had nothing to do. I just sat here every day. My phone never rang. I went from being super busy day and night to nothing. Brokers were they had nothing to offer. Nobody wanted to buy. No groups would invest. No private investors wanted to invest. And then a funny thing happened now. After the 3rd month, it started picking up all of a sudden out of nowhere. Still a lot of money out there, but everybody was waiting for this big crash. Are tenants going to pay rents in April? Are they going to pay in May? And every month it was like, are they going to pay the next month? And a lot of people, and there's a lot of different information going about in the economic news, industry news, but for the most part, it's not been that bad. And for us, and a lot of people I know, it's been fantastic. We've experienced, like with 4 properties that we have in Atlanta now, through the COVID period. March was still a normal month. And then we were very worried, but We've now had April, May, June, July, and including August, we've had the same collections pretty much as March every single month. We have a few delinquent people here and there, but the weird anomaly that's happened is that our occupancy has gone up and the want to move in. We have waiting lists. Every property we have is 100% occupied. So that's odd. I mean, usually we're always 95% plus, but that extra percentage now of being 100% full kind of makes up for the few people that are delinquent. So our collections are still the same as we were, like between 95 and 100%. As a matter of fact, we had our highest months ever, which probably May and June on the properties. So a bit weird. And we don't know what's going to happen in the fall. So there's still risk out there. There's no doubt about that. And we're looking at properties now with that view. So when the market picked up a couple of months ago, or maybe only 6 weeks ago, when we started really looking hard at things again, I decided I knew what we had to buy, and we had to buy, but just adjust the pricing for risk. Problem was, they started coming back on the market, brokers starting to call a little bit, feeling out the market, and no sellers really wanted to lower their prices. And I thought, well, that's not good. Why would there's still risk. We don't know what's going to happen in the fall, all that. Unless it's discounted, I might as well wait till the risk is gone if you want me to pay the same price as pre-COVID. So we worked out, me and Michael that works with me, he's a financial analyst, and we came up with that we think there needs to be a 15% price reduction from pre-COVID pricing to account for risk in the market right now. And that's what we looked for. And we quickly found our first deal, which is only a 93 unit, but we do sometimes buy small deals because it's in our backyard. We have other properties local to that. And that property was, the guy was going to sell it pre-COVID, and he was looking for, he had offers around 82 a door, low 80s. And after COVID, that fell apart, that stopped. And then this few months later, when we were looking, and I guess people keep in touch with brokers, put out there that he might still want to sell it or would want to sell it. I wanted to buy it. We came to a price, 69 a door. I thought it was a bargain for that property, and he just wanted to be out of the market. And we just closed on that a couple of weeks ago, and it's a great deal, great property. It's 100% occupied. We'll clear out the delinquent tenants, and it had a lot of good elements to it to know that it was a good deal. It shows well. It's on a main road. It's got a really nice entrance. All the things that I look for. So it's got good drive-by traffic. It's just a really good property for that price. And I know part of my new strategy, or part of my add-on to my old strategy, is that if we can buy stuff now discounted, for the next 6 months, we're looking at 3 years from now to sell. We're not going to have this COVID problem. I mean, I'm taking that calculated risk. So what's going to happen is, with all the money that's out there to buy multifamily, we're going to go back to the same old cap rates. So we'll have that extra bonus of that number one item of buying right, and we'll be able to make a better return. So now we have this 260 unit we're buying, and we did the same thing. That one came off market from a broker that we do a lot of deals with. And we happen to know the seller, not very, very well, but we know who they are, the big group in New York. And it was their only asset here in Atlanta. And they spent a lot of money rehabbing it over the last 2 years. I think they had possibly intended to buy more, but their plans changed. They went more into ground up development and buying some A properties. So their broker put the feeler out to 2 or 3 groups, like I said. We wanted to buy it right away. We made them an offer, assuming the loan and based on what we felt was a good discount for the risk. And that was only 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks with COVID is a lot can happen.
Yeah.
And that deal that we struck was for a deal that was probably going to be marketed for about 100 a door back in March if COVID didn't happen, if the lockdown didn't happen. And we are buying it for like 77 a door. Huge reduction. And now, the longer that's gone on, that property has actually picked up a lot their operations, and it's starting to look like a super bargain because it's now 97% occupied. We're closing in 30 days. There's almost no capital works to do. They've spent a lot of money there. It's just a management play, and they've operated it. Not their management company has not been very good. They did a lot of great work on the property, the owners group, but it's in really good condition. They spent a lot of money on amenities, and now we'll take it over and run it really aggressively. We've got another property just on the same road that is a worse quality property that has higher rents than their property, beautiful renovated units, and ours is 100% full on top. A lot of upside.
Yeah.
6 weeks later, it's looking like a real good deal, and a lot of people think, "How the hell did you get that?"
Yeah,
We are now looking for another follow-up one to at least have one more deal for the rest of the year, for like the last quarter.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's getting real hard now. Brokers calling me with deals I'm going like, "That's the same price as it was before COVID." They're like, "Yeah, I'm not going to buy that."
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's proving already pretty difficult to find the next big deal.
Yeah.
But
But I guess the good thing for you is that you guys can wait, right? It's not a rush. If you want to buy, you can buy, but it's not like you have to buy, right? And if deals
yeah, that's true. But I still think it's a good time. There's still uncertainty, and some groups will want to sell. But we have a few things that we're going to tour the end of this week, off market. When we say off market, as you might or probably know in this business, off market, nothing's ever really off market. Off market just means it's not on the broker's website and being fully marketed nationally. So they're always really through the brokers in town, the known brokers. They just don't really hit their platforms. They usually get touted around to their regular buyers first, try to make an easy sell. Hey, brokers are lazy. If they can make a few calls and sell it to a guy like, me or another group that they know can close, they don't have to market it and show it to 50 groups in over 30, 45 days. Of course, they'd rather not. So, they tout it around. If there's a deal there to be had, somebody, one of the regular buyers will buy it. If it doesn't, then it goes to full marketing campaign. And those are the ones that most people see on their, on the brokers' websites, except for there are some groups that have to, for compliance reasons, do a full marketing, or some groups just want to fully market it. A lot of people don't, including us. Probably out of 7 deals, we probably have only fully marketed 2 of them. So, we're the same way. If we get a price that we like, and somebody comes into a broker that we know brings us a good buyer that they know, we'll take it instead of going through the whole long process.
Yeah. That's it makes sense, right? Because you don't want people trudging through your apartments, putting tenants off, the
It does. It puts tenants off, and especially another thing is it puts staff off. It's very hard to keep staff on a property that they know is going to potentially be, their job's going to be gone in 60 days, and they might not get asked to stay. And they don't work so as hard. Our staff does, of course, because they love us, but most people don't, because most people want to bring their own people in.
Mhm.
And it's different for us because we own a management company, so we try to, all our good staff are really loyal to us, so we'll take them on to a next property we buy.
Very cool. Well, this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, right? I think, give you a little bit of warning beforehand about the wrestling questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so I call this part Wrestling with Real Estate. That's the name of the show, and I call this section Wrestling with Real Estate. So, what would your wrestling name be? I think you can come up with something good. I think with your history, I think something could be a name of your band. It could be something, an instrument, or
Yeah. Okay. I got a couple of names.
okay.
I think being an old fan of professional wrestling, of course. Rattlesnake Jake.
Okay, Rattlesnake Jake. Okay.
If that's not already a wrestler, maybe it's no.
There was Jake the Snake, but he wasn't
Yeah,
Rattlesnake.
Jake the Snake. I remember him. Yeah, Rattlesnake Jake.
Okay, Rattlesnake Jake. Okay.
And reason for that, I think, would be because I like, especially with buying deals, I'm I'm pretty laid back at first, and I like to just make a little noise, rattle my tail. I'm not trying to hide. I'm there. I'm there. And then when I'm finally ready to strike, you don't even know it hit.
Boom.
That's it. And we're done. The deal's done.
I like that. I like that a lot. So every wrestler has a special move. What would your special move in real estate be?
Ooh, my move.
What's your strength? What's your biggest strength in
Oh, man.
real estate? Hitting you with the hardest questions here right at the end.
That's a tough one. Because I love negotiating deals and finding deals. That's my big thing that I love.
Yeah.
I'm a deal guy, deal junkie, and a deal finder. So I'm going to use another, I guess, old school. I don't know if it's a move. Well, I guess it is. I would say my favorite would be like a sleeper hold.
Okay.
That's a good old move. I like to just, if I can get you into the right position, I'll jump in. Same thing as a rattlesnake. Once I got you in a sleeper hold, he'll just quietly go off.
I'll give you the deal, right? The deal is yours.
After the count.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So was there a moment you were standing on the top rope, getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it and how did you overcome it?
That would probably, I guess that would probably be the first big deal that I did on my own. Is 250. I mean, I say on my own, we had other people helping, but it was really, as most of my deals, I'm always in charge of everything. So responsibility wise, but 250 unit, I really thought I must be crazy. Like 250 units, it was huge to me at the time still. And I was really, really concerned. I really thought, am I going to be able to pull this off? Are we really going to be able to raise the money? I borrowed money for the EMD, and like 30 days in, and I'm starting to really have second thoughts. Am I doing the right thing? Is it, is this really going to be successful? I was shitting myself. So that would be me standing on the top ropes and wondering, I don't know. And then I just thought, all right, we got to do this. It's too late to back out. You'll blow everything that you just worked for. They'll never take you seriously again. These brokers in Atlanta, you're going to look really bad, everything. And I really just, I just convinced myself that you just have to do it. It's like any sort of fear. Sometimes you have to face your fear. And I just thought, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull it off. And I felt stressed for probably the second 30 days of buying it. We had 60-day close. And it was stressful right down to the end in every way, from the loan, getting the loan finally signed off on, and, getting the raise, and then even buying the property. I remember going to the property, and it was felt so big to me that I was lost in it when I was like walking around on the streets on the property. It was that big. It felt like a little town to me. I was overwhelmed, and I started to get that second thought feeling, and I just gritted my teeth and got through it, and we bought it, and went. It's kind of like, you broke it, you bought it, So it was no choice. And then I just dove into it and we had a lot of works to do on that property. So we spent over $1 million there, and had to turn the whole property around, but it was successful, but it was scary.
What I'm getting
after we bought it, the day I went down there and we actually owned it and took over, walking around that property, I really felt like it was huge, and like I was really nervous. Like, even regrets the day we bought it and I was down there. It was scary.
What I'm getting from you a lot is, and which I really respect and like, is that you're an extreme action taker, and you're extremely good at just making stuff happen, right? Whatever you're gonna do, whatever it takes. This is the impression I get from you all the time, is that you're gonna make it happen, and you're gonna be resourceful. You're gonna do whatever it takes and make that deal work. And I think that's, a lot of times that's what it takes, right, to be successful.
Perseverance. One partner that I had, that's been through, sort of a silent, smaller partner but in all my deals, and it ended up being a good friend of mine that I met networking. We've been through some really stressful situations on deals, raising money and other issues that came up over the last few years. And he always used to say, I don't know anybody that has the perseverance and persistence you do. And he was like a sort of corporate business guy. And he'd go, I don't know how you can cope with all that stress. He goes, and he was like a big corporate guy in mergers and acquisitions. And he'd say to me, if I was in the position that, what you're dealing with right now, I'd be curled up in a fetal position on the floor. Like, I just don't have a chance. Do I feel sick to my stomach? Yes. Do I have a choice? No. There's only one way to go, and that's up, and you just have to do it. But you do have to make educated moves in the first place. You're not going to get in the ring with a wrestler, that you think can kick the shit out of you. You don't know any moves yet. You just watched them on TV from, hey, I watched professional wrestling. I think I can do this.
Yeah.
Get in the ring with, Andre the Giant or whatever back in my day,
Yeah.
Crushed. So of course you have to have some knowledge in the first place and feel some confidence in yourself and have good people around you, maybe giving you advice. But then you also have to have the guts to carry it out.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you for sharing everything you've shared with us today. I think it's been a really, really, really interesting interview. I think there's been tons and tons of fantastic information. And for one, I know I'm going to go back and listen to this again because I really enjoyed that going with. And there's been so much great advice and so much stories in there about what you've done. It's really interesting how you went from being a rock star, right, to then in the UK, being from the US, being a rock star in the UK, investing in the UK, finding your first deal, then growing that portfolio from money that you got from the government to then coming over to the US and starting your multi-family career, right? Not even starting in, single family per se, going straight to the bigger stuff, buying a large apartment complex, 250 units for your first real deal is just amazing. And to where you are now is just unbelievable. And it's a testament to your character, I think. So I think, thank you so much for
I appreciate you asking me on the show. And thank you for listening to me too.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant.
Hopefully my words will be of interest to some other people.
I know it will for sure. I absolutely know it will be. Before we go, where can people get a hold of you? Maybe if someone wants to invest in a deal with you.
Sure. The easiest place is our website, which is www.crownbaygroup.com, as it sounds. And there's a deal resume on there right on the front page you can click on, and a PDF opens up. You see all the deals we've done, returns we've made for people. And there's a lot of information on investing in there. And there's an email on there too. It's just info@crownbaygroup.com. You can also sign up on the website to keep updated on new deals that we have, offerings. There's a accredited investor form on there you can even fill out if you're serious about coming in the next deal. And that's it. And if anybody wants to talk to me about other stuff or sponsoring or Atlanta or anything else, again, feel free to email me at info@crownbay.com, and I will get back to you.
Cool. I'll put all those links in. I'll put the link to the website and we'll link to the email in the description below. So if anyone can. So yeah, thank you so much, Steve. That's been fantastic. Thank you for giving your time. Obviously, you're a very busy man, as you talked about, but to give you time to share information today and to talk to me was very nice, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Barry. I appreciate it too. Thank you.
Thank you.